Hello, money queens and listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. Let's meet the women behind the millionaires, the women supporting, guiding, celebrating women with their wealth. You will hear from women millionaires, how they got there, what they wish they had known, what got them to be a millionaire, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the practical side of wealth. You'll also get to meet the women behind the scenes helping make it happen. Let's dive into Women Behind the Millions. I am Jessica Weaver, your host, bestselling author of 3 books, wealth advisor, and founder of the Women's Wealth Boutique. Let's start meeting the women. Hello, money queens. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Women Behind the Millions. I am your host, Jessica Weaver, and we have with us our creative director, owner and founder of Ilissa and Co, Ilissa Goman.
Yay.
Welcome to the show again, Ilissa.
Yes. Love talking.
Love talking, yes. We had an event happen at the Women's Wealth Boutique, and our voice memos back and forth. I finally said, this needs to be a podcast episode, because if we're going through it, millions, billions of women are going through it at the same time. And it's all around claiming your power. And then once you claim it, standing in that power and not letting any triggers, insecurities falter you, make your crown slip off of your head, make you feel like you're that little girl being quieted and hushed in a corner again. So I'm so excited for this episode. It's just perfectly timed with it. And I know, Ilissa, you have a story when it comes to, these different triggering events. And let's just talk about, like, what is a trigger?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really can almost be anything for anybody. It depends on everything that's happened in your life. So, when it comes to triggers for me, I think it's all about understanding that, one, I've been triggered, right? That, like, you take the minute to realize, like, oh, I might be reacting to something. And, how can I just take a pause before I react back, right? And then giving yourself some grace around it that, things happen. So, yeah.
Yes. Acknowledging that you have been triggered. I'm acting out for a reason. This isn't normal. I think we can all put ourselves in those shoes, right? If I'm yelling at my kids, and is that a typical reaction for them? Okay, it's not my kids. Something else happened, and it's almost. I remember reading a book and talking about poison. It's like when somebody spits poison on you by telling you you can't do this, you can't accomplish this, you're not smart enough, pretty enough, you're too young, whatever it is. Right? They just put that poison and spewed it on you, and now you're stuck, getting slimed, poisoned. And that reaction is us trying to get it out and not to somebody else. Because it doesn't feel good to sit in it. Right. It doesn't feel good. It's poison, right? It's going to slowly eat away at us.
Yeah.
But then there are these casualties, these people around us who get the poison spewed on to them. So you're right. It's kind of taking that moment. Oh, I just got slimed on. Yeah. How am I going to clean this up without another person being on the receiving end of it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think too, like, you mentioned something really important there, that, like, you have to stop and feel these things, right? Like, I'm a huge advocate of, like, not living in, I call it, like, the land of numb, right? Like, you have to recognize that, like, okay, this happened and it was probably really shitty that it happened, but what am I getting out of this, right? Like, what's the lesson? And how can I best serve myself and, possibly others out of it? So
that's a great point. Yeah. What is the lesson to be learned? I'm a strong believer that life gives us a repeated lesson until we fully learn it and allow ourselves to move past it. I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to move past it because this is what I deserve. This is what I'm used to. And watching a video this morning, they go, you cannot focus on what you're used to.
Absolutely.
Usually what we're used to is what we've settled for, or what we subconsciously placed on ourselves, and just kind of staying in there. But feeling the emotions, depression is when we suppress those emotions. And as you call, and you have this amazing map of the land of numb, and it's in your book that's coming out later this year, which is
Yeah.
incredible. The girl at the gas station story
Yeah.
of it. What was your land of numb? What did it look like, feel like, and how
Yes.
long were you there for?
Yeah. So I was there for a long time. Like I would say probably 10, 15 plus years. And I just, I kind of describe it as like living this surface level life, right? Where I would numb out in kind of these stagnant surface level relationships, right? And where like you didn't have to go deep, you didn't have to be authentic. You just were like people pleasing, right? You were like going with the flow and people pleasing. Um, and serving others but not taking care of yourself. And so I think a huge part of it is having that authentic community. And so that way you're surrounded by it, right? It's a constant reminder of these people already love me, and so I can just be myself. And you it's an energy, right? Like it just flows back and forth. So
Energy. Yes.
yeah.
Good way
So
to put it.
yeah.
You're right. Having that community, as we said before, what's the lesson to be learned? And so
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for you and our community, because we'll go through these moments where
Yeah.
shit happens, something hits the fan, right? And you're now having to put everything back in alignment. There's that disruptive energy or force that comes into play. And we'll voice memo, we'll talk to each other back and forth of what did I learn from this piece?
Oh,
And when I'm able to say it to somebody, I feel there's so much more accountability and power behind it.
for sure.
And talking it through in a way that's productive instead of continuing the spiral and feeling bad, but it's like, okay, I feel this way. I learned this. How are we going to do right by it? How are we going to do better? Maybe even profit from it or
Yeah.
monetize from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too that goes back to making sure you're in alignment, with yourself and your values and what's important to you. And, in a situation like the company, like, is it in alignment? And if it's not just this moment, it's going to disrupt that, it's really going to throw things off. If you keep allowing it to continue. So,
Yes. I've noticed whenever we've had that disrupting energy, we'll call it, when the wrong person who's not in alignment with our values, and that's so important. They come in to work on the team or to join the firm in some aspect, even a client, and it throws all the energy off, as you said. And they really are an energy bleed. It's like a leak,
yeah.
and it's going to affect every area of your business. And if somebody's scarcity minded in the business, even if it's just time, money, relationships, they become competitive. They're ego driven. They're
Yeah.
not in this land of abundance, and it throws it off kilter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It can. So have your relationships changed as you left the land of numb? We'll call
Oh, yeah.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I think not even just my, friend relationships, but also my family relationships have also really changed. And, I think that makes a huge difference because like when you decide to be like the cycle breaker, like it impacts everybody, right? It's not just you, but like you're the brave person who stepped forward and it kind of gives permission to the other people around you to do the same. And really, like I said, like showing up in that authentic energy, it draws in more authenticity, right? Um, and it allows people to be themselves too. So, it really just leads to more abundance for everyone, all around you. So
The cycle breaker. Is that the name of the next book for you? Because
probably
I
is.
think we need to trademark that slogan, the cycle breaker. Yeah, being that pioneer. That's a powerful word for it. How did you get yourself out of the land of numb? And you termed it. It's not like we can all picture ourselves, even just taking a moment. We can all picture that moment in our life where you felt so utterly stuck.
Yes.
Nothing's working for you. You just
Yeah.
keep failing. You're kind of at that point where now what? Now what's going to fall? Now what's going to fail? What's going to crumble?
Right.
That
Right.
rock bottom feeling, that low energy, low emotions.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I have talked about this where, you get stuck in kind of this like victim mentality where you're like, I'm trying everything, but nothing is working. Why isn't it my turn yet? And, for me, I got to that, I was in that part for a while. And then I just had this kind of moment where this thing had happened and I just didn't want to be here anymore. Right. Like that, I just was done. And so that was my rock bottom moment. Like I had to hit rock bottom to, go up. And, I was just talking to my book coach about this and she was like, well, so what happened? I'm like, I went to one therapy session and turns out therapy is not for me. Very triggering, right? And I was like, here's all of my stuff. And and she was like, well, you're like an addict, right? Like you're in this addiction to these like service level relationships. And I was like, oh, this is making a lot of sense. And, I went on to, basically just self-help myself through all of these things that kind of came up, right? Where I realized I was, dealing with the after effects of a lot of deep trauma that I went through. And, it's not always this surface level-y stuff that you think about. Like for a long time, I was like, yeah, I forgave the person that did this to me. So I'm healed, right? Like I'm fine. Everything is fine. And it was not fine. So, I was dealing with that addiction level, and, depression and anxiety and like, just like anxious attachment, um, to not just people, like, in a codependent way, but I think too, like my work, right? Where, I really was like, if I'm not doing this, like, I don't want to say bare minimum stuff because my work has always been amazing, but I just didn't understand my worth behind it. And, maybe that's the key point is that like, if you don't understand your worth, like it's not going to go up, right? Like you're just going to be stuck. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that therapy session, and it was like this gut punch, a trigger thing. And
Yeah.
there was a reason you're in that office, I'm going to
Right.
say. And
Yeah.
it got the ball rolling. This is not how I want to feel anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you get hit with that deep trigger,
Yeah.
it's eye opening, and it's always, it's your choice. You can allow that old story, which is the trigger, to continue to play out and take control over your circumstances,
Right.
or you can choose differently this time.
Yeah. You're in charge of the decision every time. Like you just get to decide. And that's really what it
That's the power.
right. That's the power, right? That's every time you get to decide. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very interesting to me as I meet with different, healers, therapists, meditation coaches, hypnotherapists, and there's so much trauma that we're even born with
Yeah.
that is passed on to us from previous generations. And
Yeah.
as you said, physical, emotional, sexual abuse usually happens with each generation until somebody like you, that cycle breaker,
Yep.
decides to stop
Right. Yep.
and to move. Last week, we were interviewing a woman, Marusha, who's same thing. Like her great grandmother left a country by herself because of the abuse at home. And she didn't realize it back then, but she stopped that cycle for all the next generations
Yeah.
to come.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge and powerful. And, I think something, else that you and I had talked about too is like when you can kind of surface level identify like that the trauma has happened and where you're at in this level, but then also, that there's this inner level, right? Where like you might be like, I come across very confident a lot of the times, right? And I can talk all day on Zoom and teach classes on Zoom. When I'm in front of people, I'm like, right, total introvert. last year with Pink Fix Day, I thought about just like leaving. I was like, I'll just get in my car and go. Like, I don't need to do this talk. Like, she's going to fire me. It is what it is. Like, it was a big anxiety thing. But it's like one thing to say I'm confident and be able to show up that way, but then, like in the back of your mind too, a lot of times, like you're not always confident. Like I'm not always confident. And, it's there's those two levels to it. And so you really have to kind of deal with, problems and issues and traumas at both of those levels, right? It's like the conscious and the subconscious. And it's a process.
Yes. And I know some of the work that you've done, that I've done, that helps with the subconscious, because I mean, that's where all the emotions, the triggers lie. And we don't,
Yeah.
and that's what scares it. We don't even know they're there until they're triggered.
Right. Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to do. Like we do meditations all the time that will open up the subconscious. You've done hypnotherapy with different coaches
Yeah.
as well. I've done that too. Different ways to tap into that subconscious. Doing mantras, positive affirmations repeatedly will help to reprogram as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doing the journal work. I was just doing journal work on, the areas of my money that I struggle with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was eye-opening seeing the common pieces behind all of them. One could be business related, one could be personal, but it's still the same underlying piece.
Yeah.
And a big one for me was shying away from responsibility, because my trigger, my story that I always would tell myself is that to have a big corporation, a big platform, enterprise is too much responsibility. Right? Earning that amount of money is so much responsibility. Something bad's going to happen. Right? Something, right? We just, in the news, we have Silicon Valley Bank having a huge issue.
Yeah.
Right now. And because I have that programming in me, my mind is constantly going to draw to articles like SVB Bank going under, Lehman Brothers, anything that's going to reaffirm that belief. That's why it's so critical to reprogram. We call it, right, the RAS of our mind, so we can find better stories.
Yep.
To fix those triggers for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think something too that is starting to get more talked about is kind of like toxic positivity, right? Where like you're not, if you don't want to be like super positive all the time just to be positive, right? Like you have to look at the positive spin on things, but decide kind of how you are reacting to those. It's not just like, I don't know how to describe this. Like,
it's like blissful avoidance of anything.
Right.
And use responsibility or taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like not just like, oh, this happy quote is going to fix my life. Like, no, you had trauma.
You need real trauma that.
Right. 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 Like you can't just like, so like that surface level mindset work. Like you can't just be like, it's going to be great. Like I can't wake up every day and be like, it's going to be great. Like if I don't have milk in my fridge, right? Like that, kind of stuff. So, but you have to work on the deep work and do the deep work to be able to come from, that positive place and be able to live in it and benefit from it. So
you bring a point, and I wanted to bring this up too, because I know you are very big into human design.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
As I do a daily money practice every morning, and you've been in my office, I'm meditating, I'm doing my journal work and stuff. And
so she's legit. She does it. She doesn't just talk about it. She does it.
I preach about it and I do it. And the only reason I preach about it is because I see huge changes, like for you, for me, for our team, our advisors, opening us up to so much more growth for it. But there are days and mornings where I don't have the energy to do it. I don't have the emotions to do it. And you should not try to manifest when you're in those low energy, low motion states.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because you're just going to attract how you're feeling, right? You can't fake it with your energy. And it's not a bad thing. Contrast is a good thing in our world. Because when you are at that rock bottom, you're programming your mind to realize this is not what I want.
Yep.
And now you're filtering through, and most of the time we have to go through what we don't want to see what we do want with it. And I learned that with my own human design, I am an energetic pulse. So my energy's on or it's off, and my emotions go up and down. And there are times when my energetic level is, my pulse is off and my emotions are very low.
Yep.
And I need to know how to better balance out my schedule, my day, my opportunities, what I write based on those two huge factors and how I'm designed. And I always thought that I'm I'm doing it wrong
Yeah.
because I have to be so excited about my work all the time and doing it nonstop in order to be profitable. But that's just not how my makeup is.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
you, how has human design helped you work more efficiently, filter through those highs and the lows as well?
Oh my gosh, so much. Such a huge topic. So I'm a projector, right? And so that basically means that like I need to wait for it's called waiting for the invitation, right? For my energy to attract the right people. So for me, I need to show up authentically because that's going to bring in the right people, right? So if I'm a huge helper, right? I love helping everybody. I'm totally cool with it. It doesn't You just ask me and I will help you.
She does. And I can
Yeah.
attest to that.
And so, but if you don't ask me for help, but I give you help and then you don't use it, right? Or even if you ask me for it, but then you just ignore what I asked you to and you did something else, right? It leaves like a bitterness, right? That's the shadow of me. And so that's why it's really important for me though to stay in alignment because like if I'm attracting the wrong customers, right? So for a long time I was pricing my work way underneath what it should be, right? And it attracts the wrong people. It attracts needy people. It attracts people who don't value your work. So they don't take you seriously, right? And
Take advantage of you.
right. So, it leaves me with all this resentment. And because I'm like, I don't know why you're not valuing me. So, it's a huge, huge thing. But human design is just it's incredible. But it opened up so much for me because then I was able to come from it from like I speak from a place of power now. Like what I have is valuable. And even going back, like you and I just went to a conference together, and the woman on stage who was their keynote speaker gave a great presentation. But everything in the presentation, I was like, I know that. Like I could be doing that. Right. Like, why am I not doing that? So, it was like just identifying like where am I playing small? But yeah, the human design piece is huge. I highly recommend everyone goes and finds what their human design is. And then looking up to it's called your gene keys. And that's another eye opener, right? It's going to tell you all about different alignments for you and how you best work and um, the things, the way you like to work. And, it just mind blowing how accurate and good it is. So,
Yeah, it's like getting, when we're at school, we're stuck in a certain box of how we're supposed to learn
yeah.
and how we're supposed to test and score ourselves. But to me, the gene keys, the Enneagram, we talk about a lot, and then the human design, it's allowing yourself to accept who you are, how you learn, how you work, how you do relationships, emotions,
Yeah.
energy. And instead of feeling like I'm not fitting into the mold, so I must be a failure. Something must be wrong with me. It's never going to happen, right? It's
Yeah.
taking you out of that box and just allowing you, as you keep saying, just to be authentically you.
Yeah.
And when we're in that box, let's talk about imposter syndrome. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if men deal with this, but women, I feel like an imposter probably at least once a day.
Oh, yeah. All the time.
As a mom, as a wife, like who gave me two kids? Who gave me this house to run? I don't know how to run a house.
Am I adulting?
Yeah. When did I step into this adulting role? And I feel my inner child. You're like, I'm having a tantrum. I'm severely hungover from all this adulting. Please give me some tender loving care. But, when we're stuck in that box of how we're supposed to operate, think, feel,
Yeah.
do life, you can very much feel like an imposter in this world.
Yeah.
That's triggering in itself, us always wanting to belong and feel accepted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with imposter syndrome?
Every day, like you said.
Okay. I strongly feel like this is a feminine
Yes. Yes, for sure.
a trait because we don't want to do positive things.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting too. Like I teach a business class for this sleep school that I in my previous life was a part of, and I still do. But and every time I teach the class, I'm always nervous, right? Like I know my stuff. I teach the class. I bring amazing like resources to the class, all kinds of trainings for them. And every time I get on the class, I'm like, oh, I hope they like this material and I hope it's helpful. And you're like, you're still nervous, right? And but last week I got an email from one of the students in this round, and she was like, "This is amazing. This is so helpful. Like, I am so glad that you taught this class for us." And I was like, yes, feeling it. So it's all of that. But again, going back to that alignment, like where do you feel your best, right? Like you want to align yourself to those situations and, you know, break out of that box and do we talk about all the time, like doing the brave things, right? Go big or go home. Um, and I think too, like, it's not like it's for ambitious people like us, right? If you're like, I'm okay where I am, like by no means feel you have to go big or go home. But for us,
Everybody's bigger go home version is different, right? Everybody's version of success is different. So getting clarity over that first and foremost.
yes, yes. We always joke, right? That like you were like, oh, should I open an RIA? And I was like, yeah, I don't know what that is, but go for it.
Freelancer podcast. Yes, we don't know how to do that, but we'll figure it out.
We're gonna do it. Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you, did you save that email from the student?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Because this is what I've learned from
Yeah.
my human design coach back in the day was
Yeah.
I need to, and I don't do this, I should
Yeah.
regularly read. I do keep them.
Mhm.
Different emails, notes people send you
Yeah. Yeah.
that reaffirm your value and your power.
Yeah.
And to do, especially for me, it was my energetic lows and emotional lows to do that for those reminders.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking too when you said that, like we did a class this past December for the advisors about creating a vision board. But part of that is that I use my vision board as part of my computer screen background. And, to add in some of those little love notes would be like a nice little touch, right? Like screenshot and then add them as that daily reminder. So
Yes, we should give ourselves some love notes.
yeah.
Some loving for it. I just had huge imposter syndrome at that conference, and I was speaking on stage in front of 500 people. 80% were men.
Yep.
Here I was, and I went upstairs with my husband to get changed into my hot pink suit.
Yeah.
Sparkly sneakers, platform sneakers on. Putting on the suit, I looked at myself in the mirror, and he read my face right away. He goes, "What's wrong?" And I'm even getting nervous thinking about it.
Yeah.
I feel like such an imposter right now because we just had breakfast with one of the other Elevate coaches, and his success, the amount that he's been able to do in his career, and he was considerably older than myself, probably 30 years older than me. But the success he's had, I'm like, who am I to get on stage with him? And my husband goes to me, well, what's imposter syndrome?
Yes.
You've never felt this way? And I'm sure he has to a degree, but one thing I think women have going for us is that we are openly talking about these things.
Yeah.
That's the first step to change.
Yeah.
And I got down into the conference room and I'm looking around the sea of men in gray and navy. And here I am, hot pink. And I said, though, any one of them could be interchanged because they're all in the box. They're the financial advisor box. This is how I should look, operate, market myself.
Right.
And so I got up on stage, and instead of saying I'm a financial advisor, I said, I'm an owner of a multimedia firm.
Right.
I'm like, because we are doing things so differently.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt the imposter syndrome, and I decided I'm going to show up and what makes me authentic.
Yeah.
What makes me, and that's what makes us different. Being, yes, a financial advisory firm at the Women's Wealth Boutique. Follow us on Instagram at Women's Wealth Boutique.
Do it.
But also publishing books, magazines, podcasts, and now our events, our speaker summit,
Yeah.
things like that is so different. So, I encourage all of you ladies, when you do feel like an imposter, go back, read those love notes from other people to you, and write your own love notes and write what makes you authentically you and different, because that's what the world needs to know. Ooh, you know what? This is spurring something. I think this is straight from God. Hold on. Wait till you hear this, because I thought this is amazing. Once read a book, and the author, Amanda Francis,
Yeah.
no, Amanda Francis, great money coach.
Yeah.
She goes, embrace your weaknesses. She
Mm.
wrote, even I'm lazy. And that's an amazing thing, because it makes me a more efficient business owner.
Yeah.
I'm going to automate things. I'm going to repurpose things. I don't have to recreate the wheel time and time again.
Yeah.
And this is right from the Bible, from Corinthians. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness.
Mm.
Give all your weaknesses, failings, and mistakes to the Lord Jesus, and see him transform your weaknesses into strengths.
Love it.
So whenever I feel like a failure or an imposter, or I just don't have the energy to do something, seeing little quotes like that and knowing that, wow, my weaknesses are my strength,
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge mindset shift
Yeah.
for me. What helps you get over the imposter syndrome, Melissa?
I think, again, almost like you said, like knowing my human design, right? So like as a projector, I need naps.
Yeah, why have we been so programmed that after age 3 or 4, no more naps are needed?
Yes. Yes. Like I honor my creativity energy too, my creative energy, where I'm not on all the time. There's a really interesting book, and I forget what the name of it is, but it's by Kate Northrup. And she talks about how like a woman's cycle is a 28-day cycle, right? Your energy is not, a man's is 24 hours. And a woman's, like, every week it's going to be a different energy level. And very, very interesting there. Yeah.
That is
Do Less by Kate Northrup. And that was a huge game changer for me. And I think too, the other book I recommend all the time, and I actually just sent this to one of our advisors, is Playing Big by Tara Moore. And it's just about like stepping into your power, right? Like I'll make this a quick conversation, but I was reading the book and was talking with a friend a few years ago while I was reading the book. And she was like running by a social media campaign she had for this like national company she was working for. And she was like, do you think this is a good idea? Or do you have any ideas around this? And I was like, well, I think you could do this, this, and this. But if you don't like it, like, don't worry about using it. Like, I don't know if you'll like, if you don't, it's like, why am I saying that?
Yeah, we do tend to say that, right? I would
go down on ideas. Yeah, you don't know your
prepare yourself for rejection before the rejection even comes.
Right. You're just like, my ideas are invalid. Don't worry. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. Like, why wouldn't I think like my ideas were valued? So
Yes.
it's, knowing those kind of nuances that are running through your head, and, how are you expressing those? Because you're drawing in that energy, right? If I'm already telling you like my idea is invalid, why would you accept it? So yeah.
You're already combating your own
Yes.
on top of it. You're right. We do tend to make up
Yeah.
excuses like that, or we're nervous about silence. I present an offer, there's silence, and you're going to say, oh, but, or you'll make up an excuse, or you try to throw something in instead of letting that person fully take it in, think on it.
Yeah.
Yes, you are. 100%. We do that.
Yeah.
So, good books.
Yeah.
Books.
Yeah.
Are that
Really good.
big? Yes, we do need to get ourselves outside of the box more.
Yeah.
Let's do a quick recap.
Yeah.
We're talking about really healing the subconscious
Yes.
of these triggers that lurk. We don't even know they're there until one gets hit.
Yeah.
And then there's that opportunity to heal and cut the chain from it happening again and again and again. Talking about the imposter syndrome and the love notes, testimonials to reread, understanding as your cycle, your human design, right? Your gene key,
Yeah.
Where's your makeup? Because that's how we're showing up in this world. And instead of it being inertia working against you, you can have a better workflow, relationship
Yeah.
flow, more healthy boundaries. We hear that word a lot lately, especially in the social media space.
Huge. Huge.
Healthy boundaries with relationships, with your time, with your money,
Yeah.
on ladies,
Yep.
things like that. But I'm glad we're able to have this conversation
Yeah.
and getting it out because I feel we talk about this a lot, you and me. And if we're dealing with it on a regular basis, other women are too. Any last words, Ilissa, for our money queens listening?
Stay aligned. Stay aligned. Yeah.
Stay aligned. We do have a checklist that reminds me of the prosperity checklist on jessicaweaver.com that's all about
Yeah.
the key questions, the quick assessment. And I highly recommend it before any sales call, any opportunities, any speaking engagements to fully connect and align and connecting your heart to the heart of the people you're about to encounter beforehand. We forgot about that check, right?
I know. There.
Well, things that we build for it. So you can check that out at jessicaweaver.com. Quick shout out for it. But thank you, Ilissa, our creative director, for being on here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
If we can help other women to not have to hit their rock bottom or stay in the land of numb,
Yeah.
to get them claiming their power and claiming it quicker, it's amazing what we're going to be able to do in this world. So thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yes. And thank you to all of our listeners. Head over to Instagram at Pink Fix My Money at Women's Wealth Boutique to see what we have going on until our next Women Behind the Millions.